Alright, this is Travis Wayne Goodsell, and early in the morning on the 4th of January 2019. Okay, so remember, I have been warning you guys that Hinckley died under a total lunar eclipse, Monson died under a total lunar eclipse. We've got a total lunar eclipse on the 21st, midnight, around that time, 20th, 21st, overnight. And so something's going to happen. It's an escalating sign, meaning that extra things were put in with each sign. This one will be a super moon, so huge in ancient understanding of the stars and how it's going to happen. Like I said, previous presidents have not had these signs, only since Hinckley. So, yeah, this is it. You know, just like Samuel the Lamanite talking to the Nephites in the capital of the Nephites. You Mormons remember that story? And the Mormons, the Nephites, threw stones at Samuel the Lamanite for telling them all about this stuff, telling them about the signs in the heavens about to come, telling them that they need to turn from, doing bad things. They needed to stop, and they were going to destroy themselves. And Samuel the Lamanite was trying to help them from destroying themselves and being destroyed by the Lamanites. And they didn't want to hear it, chased them out, tried to kill them. So guess what we got today? We've got social media where people are throwing thumbs down stones at me and others who are trying to help Mormons realize that there's major problems with the church. Now, under Nelson, if you hadn't paid attention, there were changes being made to the church while Monson was incapacitated, unable to function. And yet changes were being made in the church. These were not changes that could have been authorized by anybody other than the president of the church. Now, those who were still functioning would tell the media, hey, no, we got his approval, it's okay. Seriously? Have you ever associated with somebody with Alzheimer's? That's what Monson had. He had some kind of dementia, and President Irene, his wife, has it as well. And so Irene knew how to handle Monson, but when Monson can no longer go to work, that's a serious situation. That means it's escalated. And I've had my grandmother with Alzheimer's. I know exactly what happens to such people when they are no longer able to function on their own. I was there in the beginning in her house in Rexburg while I was finishing my education at Rick's, and I saw the initial stages. I didn't know it at the time that that's what it was, but looking back I go, I can see now that's the early signs of Alzheimer's. And so when I had moved to Utah and all hell broke loose, was forced to live in my parents' basement. It was intended to be for my grandmother. That was the intention. They were going to put me there temporarily, so until I can get my finances straightened out and be able to leave, so that they can then put my grandma in. Well, my grandmother escalated too quickly, and so they had to put her upstairs in one of the bedrooms there, which was a better thing, because if they put her down in the basement all by herself, that would have been bad news. So yeah, it's a good thing I was there to prevent that from happening, because they would have neglected my grandmother, and so yeah, that would have been bad news. Alright, so yeah, I know what it's like. I mean, my grandmother thought that she had twin babies, that she had just given birth to twin babies, and she was searching the house for those twins. My grandmother has never had twins. She believed she had twins, and she was searching the house for the twin babies. She even went outside. My mom had gone off on an errand, either to pick up my baby sister or grocery shopping or whatever. And she came home, saw my grandmother in the middle of the street, collapsed, just lying there. She was looking for her twin babies. That's how serious Alzheimer's is. My grandmother had to be fed. She couldn't feed herself anymore. She had to be put in a wheelchair eventually, and because she could no longer stand and walk, and eventually her head drooped because she couldn't hold her head up. You know, she was converting back into an infant state. You know, infant babies, you have to hold their neck so that they don't hurt themselves, and you have to basically put them in a position where they can't move. And when they begin to learn to roll, you need to be able to protect them from hurting themselves by rolling. So yeah, that's what Monson would have been going through, and they don't function in the final months. So I know that it was serious with Monson, and so for the church to come out and say everything's fine, he's doing great. Oh look, he's taking a picture with his great grandchildren. No, there's something wrong going on when the church is doing things claiming Monson was giving approval. But then you have other things. Once Nelson takes over, just boom, 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 and everything in the church is getting changed now. Everything. And let me go over the list. The priesthood and Relief Society lessons were changed to be based on feelings. You know, we were supposed to have President Monson in the priesthood and Relief Society lessons as the final prophet to be discussed, and they canceled it and instead did the lessons based on feelings. Now, Monson may have had a part in this, might have. We're not fully sure. You know, he may have said, yeah, we don't need to have my lessons, don't worry about me. Monson was well beloved by Mormons. You know, don't you agree, Mormons? So to not have his lessons, it's strange, bizarre, but that's what they were doing, and they were going based on feelings. They were not utilizing the scriptures in those new lessons that they had. It was topics, but it was designed to facilitate discussion rather than this is the doctrine, these are the scriptures that talk about the doctrine, and then members and class members add to the discussion going, oh yeah, that reminds me of this passage from this, about this story and how it relates, and oh yeah, and then how I tried this in my life, and when I did this in that manner, this resulted. We don't do that. And so now it's all, yeah, I feel that the sacrament should be a situation where we lock the doors and that everybody, we should only have white bread, and, no, that's not the direction that we need to go to with feeling-based discussions. And that's what happens under feeling-based discussions, is Mormons create the doctrine. And that's bad news. I saw that immediately, and of course my stake president ignored me, and my bishop thought that I was going apostate. See, this was right in the transition time of when the bishop was antagonistic towards me and trying to get me out of the church. And my discovering, hey, wait a minute, all these questions that I've had over time, something's not right, and oh, I'm going to study church history because so anyway, so that was the first thing. And then we get no varsity scouts. The Cub Scouts, we already knew about that, but now they were doing away with Boy Scouts. No more home teaching. In April conference, Nelson's first conference, no home teaching. And I knew immediately that's not going to be good, because even though you may call it ministering and blah, 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 nobody's going to do anything anymore. People are going to stop visiting people. And lo and behold, that's what happened in my local ward. So I'm sure it's going on in every other wards as well. You may have the couple members who are the righteous ones, who are faithful and keeping track of their assigned members. And there was initially in our ward, people were still treating the ministry as home teaching. And so it took time to realize, I don't have to report visits, so why bother? So it took time in my ward, but they've eventually caught on, and nothing's getting done now. All right, so then he also, in that same April conference, no high priests, gone. Any elder currently can no longer receive the high priesthood. The high priesthood, section 76 of the Doctrine and Covenants, in order to get into the highest degree of the celestial kingdom, you must be a high priest. Not just an elder, not any other office in the Melchizedek priesthood. We used to have 70s, for example. It has to be someone who is a high priest. Anciently, it is only the high priest who gets into the Holy of Holies, thus the presence of God, thus the celestial kingdom. It's that simple, Mormons. And yet they did away with it. No high priests anymore, unless you become a bishop or stake president or a high councilman in the stake. Those have to be high priests as well. And so, elders, you just got screwed. And then thus no exaltation in the celestial kingdom. Then the temple has been changed, and women now no longer have to obey or hearken unto the counsel as her husband hearkens unto the counsel of the Father, hearkens unto God. Now both go straight to God. So women no longer are in bondage to their husbands. And so there's no leader in the family. Children don't know who the leader is. Do you listen to mom or do you listen to dad? Or do you switch depending on who lets you get away with what? That's what's going to happen. And so, the family proclamation now is null and void, because the family proclamation says that the husband is the presider in the home. He has the responsibility for the care and maintenance of the family. Not anymore. According to the temple, that's not the case. And people don't realize this. There are consequences for acts and actions. And when you establish a law in government, you need to understand that there will be consequences. People will always try to violate the law. And so they'll take the laws and literally interpret them and say, well, this crime is not specifically mentioned as a crime, therefore it's not a crime that I'm doing this. See how that works? They're going to do it in the church. Oh, we don't have to visit people anymore? Okay. That's how it works. And so that's what's going to happen with this. And so now we no longer have Sunday school. This Sunday, no Sunday school, gone. And so you're not going to be studying the scriptures, are you? The church has on their LDS website a scripture study plan, But, again, who's going to really follow up on that and implement it? Nobody. Mormons are no longer going to study their scriptures. They weren't doing it with Sunday school. They just sat and listened to whatever the teacher told them from quoting out of the manual. Now nobody is going to do it. You know, you'll have the certain righteous people who will try to do it and such forth, but there's no incentive now. No Sunday school, no scripture study. You know, they don't replace these things. You know, they could have had an institute program at the ward level where the ward has assigned somebody to be an institute instructor so that the members of the ward, the adult members, can come to the church during the week and take the classes. It would be that simple. But no, they're not going to implement that. So with no incentive, Mormons are just going to say, you know, and they're saying that they're doing this to have family time so that Mormons can spend more time with their families. Again, if there's no incentive, ain't going to happen. Family units will just do whatever they do at home. You know, little Billy will be on his tablet in his room playing some game. Susie will be on her tablet or computer figuring out a cure for cancer. And Dad will be on the couch drinking a beer. All right, a Mountain Dew. and watching the game and or the football game or whatever game's on. And then Mom will be inventing a new baked good that will have decorative powers. Who knows? But you know, every family is different. But that's how it's going to be, with no incentive, with no accountability. That's what happens. Anarchy. People do whatever they want, and so also the church was under attack, as they would claim, because of the bishops' interviews. Recordings were leaking out about how bishops were inappropriately talking to children in bishops' interviews, and so the church was forced to come out and say, okay, women and children can have a witness with them in an interview. Notice they left out men. Men don't get protection in the church. And so they recognized that there was a problem, but they didn't protect men. They protected the weak. All right, so, and then if you didn't pay attention to October conference, especially President Oaks' talk, he declared scientific truth is not true. Go back. Listen to him again. This is not me, people. I'm not the one creating these for the church for you to follow. Don't be ridiculous. This is what has happened. And so you've got to be aware of that. Don't hate me. I'm not the target of your hate. Putting a thumbs down does not eliminate any of these situations, any of these changes. And it just blows my mind that Mormons can be so brainwashed that they would seriously not recognize what's happening to them as they attack people like me. It makes no sense whatsoever. So, yeah, I mean, you guys watch Star Wars. You know very well about the Jedi mind tricks. Apparently not. Okay, so, yeah. He said it, not me. Go back, listen to it. They didn't edit it. All right, so have you noticed? No prophecies about the last days anymore. Nothing. They're not talking about it. They're not even declaring the last days stellar signs. We had a total solar eclipse. We have had total lunar eclipses, with Monson dying under it. And we've got another one now, this month. And we've had John the Revelator. Remember, the Book of Mormon says, at the time that the signs are fulfilled, people will understand John's words. What do you think's going on? Who do you think the beast is? What do you think the mark of the beast in the forehead is? What? The baseball caps that say MAGA. Come on, Mormons. The image of the beast? TV. Speaking blasphemies. Who's speaking blasphemies? Who has a MAGA hat that he gives out to his followers, his worshipers? This is a no-brainer. We know because it's happened. And then he wants an ID so that we get food. Buy and sell. It's in there. Revelation 13. Those signs for the time frame are in chapter 12 of Revelation. And Nelson, nothing. Monson, nothing. They're not warning us. They're not preparing us. Instead, Nelson's going full blitz on changing the church. The old people are going crazy. Oh, tradition. We need tradition. Yes, old members of the church want tradition. They don't want change. That's the way they are. That's the way they were in my family. That's the way they were in the communities that I grew up, where old people were. People don't like change. And this kind of drastic change, this isn't a slow change over decades. No, boom, 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 boom. This is intense, guys. You know, the young people can say, oh, yeah, okay, cool, I can go with the flow. The elderly can't handle it. You know, when computer technology came out, the elderly were like, I don't know how to use this. What newfangled technology. They can't handle change, especially at a rapid pace that we're going at. So this is disturbing. And then you've got no translation of ancient scriptures. We've got tons of ancient scriptures being discovered, but none are being translated by our church presidents, who are supposed to be seers, prophets, revelators, and they don't say it in conference, but translators. They're supposed to have the ability to translate ancient records, just like Joseph Smith. But since Brigham Young, nothing. Cricket. The Mormon cricket, chirping in the air. That's it. And so, yeah, what's going on? Why don't we have new scripture added to our canon? Oh, they'll do it someday. Oh, really? You're going to speculate on that? The fact is, they're not doing it. You can't speculate for hope in some future time. We've seen that with Democrats. Republicans owned everything in the government. Oh, the midterms will get them. We'll overturn the government. Then we'll go after Trump. Oh, then we'll wait for the Mueller investigation. No, we'll wait for the 2020. See, they just keep putting things back because it doesn't work. Hope and belief don't cause change. So, yeah, and then, are you not aware of the Deseret News back in May changing their privacy policy? They didn't bother to email us until July, but they changed their policy. They can now spy on our hard drives. They sell our information to third parties who can spy on our hard drives. Deseret News is owned by the church. This was during the time of the recordings of bishops' interviews. They tried to get the Utah legislature to pass a no recording on your cell phone bill. And the Deseret News comes out with a policy change saying, hey, we're going to spy on your hard drives. And we're going to report you if we find criminal violations. What? Wow. Okay, so now we have violations of the Constitution by the Deseret News, the LDS Church. But they can also use it as compromat. Critics of the church, they can use your hard drive as compromat against you. That's what Russia did. You know, the email scandals. That's how they can do it. So, yeah, the church is now implementing Russian mafia tactics. Deseret News, look it up. Privacy policy. I'm not making this up, people. It's in there. Read it. I know it's the small print. You don't like to read it. It's in there. They can do that. Who are their third parties? Is it a Russian app? Is it Russia that can hack into our hard drives? We don't know. They won't tell us. And then we also find out, back in that same time period, that the church has LLC companies. These LLC companies are getting money from unknown sources from around the world. Who's putting money in? Well, $32 billion worth of money was getting put into these LLCs, and the church was funneling them, laundering them through the stock market. So they launder it through the LLCs, then they're re-laundering it through the stock market. That's criminal financial fraud. But again, Trump already passed an act, an executive order, saying, hey, no, LLCs no longer need to report where they get their money from. Now, why is Trump doing this? Well, he's trying to protect himself. But look how the church is now using it. Oh, it's no longer a crime. See? When there's no accountability, people will try to get away with whatever they want because it's no longer considered a crime. Crime is not a crime. And they're a religion. They're doing it for good purposes. They're paying less than 1.1% to welfare for the people of the world. 0.1% of what they are making. And I don't know exactly, but I know it's at least 0.1 because they won't reveal their financial information to us. They're no longer revealing the member stats. Remember, Oaks in April conference last year said we're no longer going to announce the membership numbers. You got to look them up. I looked it up. The church lost over 200 members, which means that the number of child baptisms and convert baptisms was not enough, and the number of people who took their name off the church's list overcame the number of the baptisms to be negative 200,000, somewhere around there, which means more than 200,000 have left just in the last year, 2017. And that's why they weren't posting the numbers, because if you don't have incentive to go and see, you're not going to do it. I wanted to do it because I was recognizing things were happening. And so, yeah, I did the math. Stakes and wards and branches, they all have specific numbers for membership before they divide them or break them down to branch levels or what, you know, they have a number limit. And temples are based on those as well. We were losing over 200,000 in church membership. But then we have 7 temples announced? Huh? Massive numbers leaving, but an increase in number of temples being built? Something's not right. And since social media came out, I've found that over 10 million members of the church have just stopped coming to church, stopped doing anything with the church, stopped association. Over 10 million. In 2014, or I think it was 2014, the news was all abuzz about this exodus. And social scientists were saying we're estimating about 5 million are left in the church who are actively going and having some affiliation with the church. 5 million. I'm doing the estimate from the ward and branch numbers for full capacity. And at full capacity, 3 million is what I estimate. Full capacity for all wards, all branches, full capacity. So yes, I'm probably being very generous. There is a crisis in this church. And you can say, well, that's why the church is making all these changes. No, that's bad. You've seen it in businesses. When a business drastically loses money, yes, there is the tendency to rebrand themselves and change everything about them. I understand that. But rarely does it ever work. Because people know them. You can't fool us. We know who you are. We know you're still Kmart. We know about your blue light specials. Yeah, and Kmart's gone. Sears is gone. Mervyn's is gone. Circuit City is gone. So, yeah, that's what's going on. The church is in crisis mode, and they think that they're going to rebrand themselves. That's why Nelson's tweet, we're beginning the restoration. Joseph Smith began the restoration. What are you talking about beginning? That's what he's talking about. He's changing the church into something completely different, just like Brigham Young did. Yeah. Brigham Young's church was not Joseph Smith's church. Completely different. If you don't believe me, go back and read his talks in his Journal of Discourses. He started polygamy. He started polygamy. Let me repeat that. He started polygamy. He was racist. Took away the priesthood from blacks. Took away the priesthood from women. He was anti-woman. Women were just sex objects to him, to have for his harem, which he called spiritual wifery. That was Brigham Young. A new God. Adam became Heavenly Father. Read it. He talked about this. This is not some fake news stuff. He said it. And then he was a murderer. He justified murder, saying that it was God's law. Blood atonement. So, Brigham Young. And so now we're doing another complete makeover of the church. Okay, so also the church has been supportive of Kavanaugh. Do you know how many Mormons were on that committee? Hatch, Lee, Stewart, Flake. 4 Mormons on that committee to put Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. 4! And then you have Oakes in conference supporting that decision. Go back and listen to his talk. Look at what he talks about as policies that he agrees with. Listen. Compare it to Cavanaugh on what they were talking about with Cavanaugh getting on the Supreme Court and the issues that would be of concern. Compare. Oakes was a judge. Oakes was declaring his support of the 4 Mormons who approved Cavanaugh. I got a letter from Hatch, a personal letter, not a form letter. Hatch said, Cavanaugh is my best buddy. I've known him for a long time. So when allegations came out in large numbers, Hatch refused to believe them, even though it was proved in that hearing that it had merit. Because, what was her name? Blasey Ford? Was that it? She described the location and the people who were with him and the possible date of when it occurred. And then he comes out and says, I kept a calendar of my events that year. And it was my dad that inspired me to do it. Guess what was on the calendar? The date of the incident she was talking about. He was saying, no, it never happened. There was no such thing that could have ever happened. There it was, on the calendar. And they still voted. Mormons voted him in. He's got serious accusations. Serious sexual predatorial accusations. And they were confirmed with his calendar. And then you have Nelson in April conference, and then to the youth in his youth fireside, ordering Mormons to stop watching the news and social media. Social media was doing all sorts of things, of recording police beating on black kids, shooting black kids, and all these other atrocities. People now have cell phones. They can record crimes in progress. The lady with a child wanting assistance from the government. No seats. Nobody would offer her a seat. Still, she sat on the floor. Security came in, said, you can't sit on the floor. I need to get help. There's no seats. And they throw her to the ground, rip her baby from her, and haul her out. She gets no assistance. The poor and the needy are getting no assistance. Separation of families is the rule of the day. And so Nelson is saying, don't watch the news, don't watch the live feeds by citizens who are recording criminal behavior. But he calls it social media. There's HughesNet TV. It's satellite internet service. And it's a commercial. And the woman, she gets on there. Well, you can listen to how she talks about how the internet is to be used. Notice she never says that it is to be used for communication. She instead calls it contact your friends on social media. Contact rather than communicate. I'm communicating with you through the media medium. But this is communication. FCC did away with net neutrality. They rebranded the internet as a media format. Why? Because they can make money. If it's a communication system, they can't make money. That's how they're doing it. All right, and then, yes, there's more. Remember Prop 2 Mormons? The majority of you voted to have medical marijuana for your friends and family members or yourself who have seizures. Medical marijuana is the only known thing currently that can prevent seizures, or at least stop them while in progress. Because a seizure is a hyperactivity in the electronic pulses of the brain. Medical marijuana slows brain functioning. That's why people who do recreational marijuana are like, oh, dude, wow, man. Their speech is slowed, their thinking is slowed. So yes, recreational marijuana, not a good idea. Medical marijuana for people with seizures, good idea. But the church came out before and said, vote no. Mormons gave them the finger and said yes. The church then came out and went to the Utah legislature. Overturn it. Change it. The Utah legislature complied with the church. The church again interfered in government and in your vote. The church. This is not me, people. You all know this. These are facts that are going on. You know these. You know about Proposition 8, where the church financially interfered, ordered the members of the church in California to vote no on Prop 8. And now, you know about the Colorado baker. The church put in their friend of the court support for the Colorado baker, so that the church can discriminate against anybody they choose, which would be critics of the church. So if you're a critic of the church, a known critic of the church, and you try to buy at a church-owned business, and there are lots of Mormons in Utah who own businesses, those Mormons can say, I'm sorry, you are violating my religious freedom, and I refuse to sell to you. Wow. That's already happening in the Christian communities. Christians are rising up saying, I will not treat this baby because the baby is adopted by gay parents. I don't care if the baby's sick, get rid of the gay parents. Then I'll take care of the baby. That's what's going on. That's what the religious freedom movement that the church is promoting is all about. Do you not see the connection that I'm pointing out here? And so Mormons, the church, is anti-people. They're being elitist. And they're not speaking out against Trump and his elitism, his white supremacist attitude. That's what America First comes from, is the KKK. The KKK had that slogan, America First. Trump goes on and declares, I'm a nationalist. Nelson, where is he? He's not speaking out against it. He's not saying, Trump, you can't do this. You know, they're supposed to speak out against government corruption, at least against government immorality. You know, Trump has an illegitimate baby from a woman he's raped. They're not bringing it out yet. It's still with the news company that is now cooperating with the Mueller investigation. They haven't brought that out yet, but it sort of was about to be because of the guy in charge of security at the hotel where the woman lives. He was silenced with a non-disclosure agreement, but the paper has it. So now Mueller has it. And then there's other immoral behaviors of Trump that are going to come out unless Trump declares martial law. And so why then is Nelson making all these changes? He is not behaving as a president of the church, a religious leader, somebody who's supposed to care for the flock. What's going on? Well, remember, and a temple at an undisclosed location in Russia. There it is. There it is. That explains everything. And if you don't understand it, then you don't know Putin's Russian Mafia. I already did the video. It's not me speaking. It's clips about the Russian Mafia. Nobody builds in Russia until Russia gets compromise on you. And then you have to do certain things to prove your loyalty to Russia before they will allow you or consider building a temple or a Trump Tower in Russia. Trump is compromised by Putin, and Nelson is compromised by Putin. The church is under their control. They own and operate the church now. They've already bribed them, and now they are having to do what Putin wants them to do. But why all these changes? What did I tell you about Trump? Trump is not just going to lie down and allow his daughter Ivanka and himself to go to prison for life. He's not going to do that. Maybe he will because he's afraid of being murdered by the Russian Mafia. You know, the gassing of the opposition to Russia in England. You know, they can get you anywhere. And there have been people in the United States who have died, but they haven't confirmed that it was a Russian operative who did it. But during the 80s, under Reagan, Russians were exposed as being everywhere in the United States. They have not all been removed. There are still Russian operatives in the United States to this day. And Maria Butina, they call her Butina, but there's an extra I in there in Russian. She is one of those Russian operatives. She wasn't silent about it. She outwardly declared, I'm a Russian, and went to Trump at that press conference and asked him, what are you going to do about the sanctions against Russia? Oh, I'm going to do away with them. Oh, there's the compromise, or the compromise on Trump. He exposed it. He was going to be put in as president so that he could remove sanctions from Russia. So what then is the compromise for the church? What is the church expected to do? Because they can't do government stuff. It's only religion. What is Putin's plans for this nation? Joseph Smith declared that the Constitution would be neglected, hang by a thread, and that the federal government will be inoperative. What are we looking at now? We're in a government shutdown. Trump is refusing to release the shutdown. He said Mexico was going to pay for the wall, and now he's saying America must pay for the wall or I'm not releasing the shutdown. He is holding America hostage. People are going without money to live. Over 1 million workers without money. And funding for California fires and other fires requesting federal assistance. Gone. They don't get it. So we see that Trump is compromised by Russia, and we see that what he is doing is to suppress everybody into an authoritarian tyranny. So then what does Putin want with the church? If he's going to turn America into despotism through Trump, what then would the church serve in that? Well, we already saw it. I already pointed it out to you. 4 members of the church in key positions to let judges, specific judges, get placed throughout the United States and in the Supreme Court. And other hearings also. But then what about the church? If we become a despotism nation, and Joseph Smith said that the Mormons would rise up and save the Constitution and build the kingdom of God. Putin doesn't want that. He wants to destroy the United States into despotism. So then what will Putin ask of Nelson? Loyalty. So that when the United States falls into despotism, the church will be the SS of Nazi Germany. Mormons, loyal to the church, will be used as the military arm to promote the despotism of the United States. Nelson told the youth, created a youth battalion. There you go. What about Benson? 1986, in the Aaronic priesthood session. You are the youth of the noble birthright. You are the army of the Lord. Nelson's going to take that and twist it to Putin's will to make you believe that you are fighting for America and its freedom, when in reality you are helping to make it a despotism. That's what's coming. That's how Satan works. He takes the good idea and makes it bad. Crime is not a crime if the church does it. Crime is not a crime if those in power do it. You know that you may be called upon to save this nation. But are you sure you're saving the nation when you are separating families, when you are locking innocent people up who are opposing the the rejection of their rights to life, liberty, property. I've already seen Mormon comments on the Deseret News about the immigrant crisis. Mormons are quoting Trump, and Trump is quoting Russia. It was the Russians who implanted all the ideas on Facebook, and I witnessed Mormons on the Deseret News comments and on my Facebook channel when I had it, of those who were in my neighborhood. Mormons parroting the Russian propaganda. You don't think it's going to happen? Watch. When you have to arrest your son because he's speaking out against the corruption, when you have to see something, say something, when you have to report, I see a black man. Okay. It's now a crime to be a black man. Don't you know that? Everybody's doing it. It's a crime to be black now. So, and women are not going to have rights. You think they're going to allow the House to have any power? Senate has the power. It's coming. And it's an hour, so I'm going to stop. I need a haircut, I think. I really need to do it. So we'll see if I can. This is serious, Mormons. You don't make these kinds of changes without consequences, without some agenda that's in the works, in the operation. I was an Eagle Scout. I still am, I guess, technically, because it's once an Eagle Scout, always an Eagle Scout. We had citizenship in the nation, citizenship in the community, merit badges. I was told to be loyal to a good and righteous government, to stand against corruption. What about you? Choose ye this day whom ye shall serve. I know, you don't believe it. But you don't know Russia. You don't know Putin's Russian Mafia. You don't know what it's like to be held captive and be forced to do their will, or they kill your family, or they expose some crime that you committed, or corruption that you committed, or embarrassment that you had done. You don't know them. You don't know what it's like. But the Venezuelan Mormon, returned missionary, wanted to go back to get his wife, bring her to Utah. They planted weapons in his apartment and then put him in prison, where they tortured him, held him as a political pawn, a political prisoner, until finally they relented, and now he's free. And then Trump is taking all the credit for it, even though Hatch was the one that did the arrangements. That's the kind of people that you're dealing with in Russia. And now they have a prisoner. A guy with a military background but he's also toured the world. He's being used as a pawn. He most likely didn't commit crime. So, yeah, you don't think this is real? You know, that this is only happens in the movies? No. I went to New York, New York on my mission. I dined with the Mafia. I dined with the gang members. I know them. I know how they work. I know how they operate. It's in Utah, but it's from the government. You know, there are gangs, but they're controlled by the government. They're allowed to exist by the government. See, the police, they know exactly who's in the gangs. They've got the list. They could at any time remove the gangs from power, but they don't. They allow them to continue. So, yeah, this is serious stuff, Mormons. And it's not me. This is what's happening. I'm just reporting it.